And we can now move to almost the last plenary session before we come to the closing, which is quite an exciting format, a panel discussion, on the topic of how can religious actors become active for ecological sustainability in their contexts. And it is really a great pleasure to welcome 4 distinguished speakers to this panel. I will just very briefly introduce them, because we don't want to take too much time out of the conversation, and we also want to open up the conversation to everybody else once the speakers have all had their say. The first person that is joining our panel is Reverend Dr. Rachel Mash, who is an environmental coordinator at the Anglican Church of Southern Africa, and also a member of the Anglican Communion Environmental Network Steering Committee. And it is really, I mean, we are delighted to have you here, Rachel. I have the feeling that whenever Green Anglicans comes up, it's automatically connected with your name. So wonderful, and it's impressive, all the work that Green Anglicans have been doing, and we're so happy to have your expertise here. Now, the second person that will be joining us in the panel is soon to be Dr. Robekkah Ritchie, who is a postdoc at Freie Universität Berlin, at the Free University in Berlin, our sister institution in the same city. And she has worked extensively on Buddhism, on Buddhist communities, with a focus on ecological questions in Buddhist communities and in various countries. She has worked on Canada, she has worked on Thailand. So it's wonderful to have you, Robekkah. It's great that you're joining us. Unfortunately, we are in the same city, but we're not in the same room. That's very unfortunate. But nonetheless, I'm happy we're here in this virtual room. Now, as a representative of the Baha'i community, I hope I didn't see her yet. Tahirih Matthee is a representative of the Baha'i community. She has worked in interfaith dialogue. She has worked on ecological issues. Tahirih, could you maybe just raise your voice so I know you are there?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, wonderful, wonderful. Good to have you. Such a pleasure. Great that you are joining us. Thank you, thank you. I just wanted to make sure you are there, because I didn't see your name in the list. It apparently doesn't show, but wonderful that you are here. And the fourth speaker in this panel discussion will be Apostle Siboniso Ngobese, a distinguished church leader from the Johannesburg Midrand area in South Africa. He is the spiritual leader of Gilgal Bible Church in South Africa. Apostle Ngobese, I saw your picture earlier. I assume you are here. Maybe you can just say a word to make sure. Yes, yes. Now I see you. You must please unmute your microphone, and then I'm sure we can also hear you.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Wonderful, wonderful. Apostle, it's wonderful to see you.
Yes. Thanks for allowing me to be here.
Wonderful, great. And that is where we will start. We'll jump right into the discussion, and I kindly ask all the speakers to be concise, and so we have enough time for questions in the end, and enough time to get into a nice conversation. Now, Apostle, your church is located in Kaalfontein, which is in a township north of Johannesburg in the Midrand area. And my first question would be, what are the ecological issues your community is faced with? What are the ecological challenges that your community is faced with? How do you feel climate change and ecological challenges affecting your community's life?
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. And I also apologize for coming in and out. We are facing a bad weather in our side. but I hope you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you well.
Thank you, thank you. Yes, on our side, as I'm located in South Africa, Calfontaine, we are facing a very, very big problem according to the question. Firstly, maybe I would like to say we believe that godliness is next to cleanliness. That means, in simple terms, we believe that as Christians, we are the stewards to take care of the earth. Now, humans have the role to protect all the creation and not destroy the land as we are talking about ecology and sustainability. Now, what we are facing, I think I'll have just few points. We are surrounded by a lot of informal businesses around in our area in Calfontaine and informal settlement. Therefore, half the time we breach whereby we face polluted air resulting from fire, smoke, and this may lead to respiratory illnesses since we are surrounded by the squatter camps around our area. So that is one of the problems that we are having. That is, we breathe polluted air. And then also the other one, contaminated water around the area is also another challenge we are facing as the community. Most of the water around our area are not fully hygienic. This is also because major health problems are surrounding the area. We have streams that are not clean. So also people are throwing, garbage around the area. Also that take part in polluting the area. As I said, we are around a squatter camp. Our church is in the middle, and then there is squatter camp around the area. So also that water produces, in another way, it affects the way we should, the cleanliness of the water around the area. That is another problem we are facing, water contamination. The hygienic problem is very high. It's very high in our area. And environmental pollution. This is our biggest challenge in my community. People do a lot of illegal dumping, which makes the ground a risky or health hazard for children to play in. And also overpopulation and energy transition. Currently, we have areas which we have not been having electricity connection. We never had electricity because of illegal connection around the area, and it is researched because research shows that one transformer can only accommodate certain amount of residential, but due to the acceleration of people in the community, we end having more people relying on energy suppliers which were not meant to accommodate them. This power failure it also contributes to health problems since people have to resort to paraffin and fire, which makes or may produce contaminated smoke. Yes. And then the climate change. I think that is the last point that I can mention. Climate change. This one is a global challenge, but we also experience it firsthand. Crops and habitat loss, heat waves are sometimes too much that they are even harmful to plants. That is what we are facing around our area. And it is really causing a big problem, because even children, they have no place to stay because of the mushrooming of squatter camps in the area and the fire that also affects climate change.
Thank you, Apostle, for this very comprehensive overview. We can see that there are quite a number of challenges that you are faced with in your community. How does your church engage with these challenges?
Okay, thank you. And I apologize. I think we are facing, sometimes I don't hear you clearly here because there is wind in our side for now. but I'll
we can
try.
Hear you well. We can hear you well.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's good. Okay. We have community outreach programs where we engage in gardening to save and retain our plants and cleaning of our parks and grounds. We also work with the schools next to our churches, using community people and also the members of the church around to make sure that we keep our area clean. We advocate for elimination of illegal dumping, minimizing of harmful chemicals, and proper management of scarce resources such as water. And we promote the implementation of recycling habits into everyone's daily lives, as we know that this can effectively help lessen landfill waste, conserve natural resources, save habitats, reduce pollution, cut down on energy consumption, and slow down global warming. So this is what we try by all means to do as the church, to say we are the caretakers of the health of the earth. We need to act, otherwise no one can act if we just sit and do nothing. And I thank you for that.
Thank you very much, Apostle, for this contribution. I would like to move to Rachel Mesh. Rachel, the Green Anglicans are at the forefront of when it comes to religious communities' advocacy on environmental and climate change issues. Now, from your experience with the Green Anglicans, how can the Green Anglicans' experience contribute to ecological actions in other religious communities, for example, smaller local religious communities?
Good morning, Philippe, and to all the members here present this morning. It's wonderful to be part of this conversation. And I know last year when you had the conference, we were very excited to hear, we had Father Sam Sibelani from Zimbabwe was at the conference, and Charles Bokolo from Malawi, Ngobese Masuku from Swatini, and of course, our dear Kate Davis. So really to feel part of this conversation. I want to make 3 points, I think 3 important lessons that we've learned over the last few years. I think first of all, we need to start with the spiritual. If we jump immediately to the actions, then the danger is that you end up with a church or a mosque with the same, with a recycling bin outside of it. We actually need to change our spiritual DNA. Now, for us in the Christian community, that means we need to look at the big questions. What is salvation? Is it only human beings that are going to be saved? Or do we look at John 3:16, where God so loved the cosmos that he sent his son? What does that mean for our understanding and our teaching about salvation? What is the word of God? Is it only the written scripture that is the word of God? Or like in Psalm 19, where we read that the heavens declare the glory of God. If we believe that the whole of creation has the fingerprint of God, then it means that we also must study the fingerprint of God and not only study the written book of God. And what does it mean to preach the good news? Is it only to human beings, or do we go to Mark 16:15, go into all the world and preach the gospel to all creation? So we actually need to look at core beliefs of our spirituality. What is salvation? What is the word of God? What is evangelism? What is the good news? Otherwise, our environmental action becomes a tag along and the church stays exactly the same. The second point I want to make is the vital role of young people. Who is giving the message is as important and probably more important than what the message is being given. We, as the older generation, we have to start by confessing that we have destroyed the world. Since I was a teenager, for example, the planet has lost half of its wildlife species. Our role is to lament. Our role must be to support the young people. We are not the experts. They are the experts. They understand how things work on this planet. They always consult them when you're going to start programs. Don't run campaigns without consulting your young people. They understand the culture, and it is their planet and their future. The third point I want to make is, let us concentrate on movement building and not on institution building. Within the environmental movement and within our faith communities, we put so much energy into building our own organizations, our own institutions. We must put our energy into building movements. Social media is so important for this. Transformational change does not take place when individuals change. Transformational change takes place when networked individuals change. For example, if I plant a tree, I think, okay, I planted a tree. But if I plant a tree and I know that I'm in a movement with people in the Philippines and other places around the world, then it gains significance and I'm part of a movement and I will continue. I want to end with, because you only gave me 3 minutes. I want to end with a picture of a river, which has been quite significant for me, I think, recently. Today is the World Day of Prayer for Creation, the start of season of creation. And I do want to encourage people to embrace the season of creation. It's been incredibly important for us. And this is a movement. We must share freely. We mustn't hold on to our intellectual property or worry if our name or our logo is on an event. Let us end with the picture of a mighty river. There are mighty rivers that can wear away mountains. There are mighty rivers that can change the landscape. And those rivers have a name. The rivers that came into that mighty river, those tributaries, they also had names when they started. But once those rivers move into the great river of the Amazon or the great river of the Nile, they lose their names. And in order to be part of the movement of the mighty river which will change things, we may be willing to lose our name. Today, as we celebrate the World Day for Prayer for Creation, I've seen the movement of God whereby different denominations have all come together into this movement of celebrating season of creation. And we've lost our names. We have become part of the movement for the season of creation, which now is a big river, which is beginning to have systematic change. So I want to end with that picture of the river. Be willing to lose your identity as you move into the bigger river of environmental action. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. Thank you very much for your sharing your experience and for sharing the picture of the river that we must all become part of. I would now like to move to Matthee, who is a representative of the Baha'i community. Tahirih, it's great to have you, and I want to ask you on the Baha'i community's engagement with ecological sustainability. Now, why is it important for the Baha'i community in South Africa to be part of SAFSE? SAFSE, as mentioned earlier, is the Southern African Faith Communities Environmental Institute. So why is it important for the Baha'i community to be part of this multi-faith initiative?
So thank you. Can you hear me? Am I clear?
Yes, yes.
Thank you. Do you wish me to have the camera on, or is it okay if it's off?
Whichever way you prefer. We like seeing you, but we also enjoy hearing you.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. So thank you for that question, Philip. So I think I'm so privileged to be in the company of friends. You know, it always warms my heart when I hear the voices of Kate Davies and Rachel and so on. So I'm feeling I'm in a good I'm feeling at home in the webinar and happy to hear the other contributors too. I think from what Rachel has just said before me, it's very important when we come together like this, not to be tempted just to jump into the environmental issues, and to just remember, you know, that essentially we are spiritual beings and we live in a material space as spiritual beings. And so for the Baha'i community, the hallmark feature of our faith is the oneness of God, the oneness of religion, and the oneness of the human family. And so in responding to your question about SAFSI, SAFSI has done a very, very critical piece of work in creating that space for all the faith communities to come together. And unlike at other times in the world where we see the religions working against each other, most unfortunately, here we have had the insights, you know, of Bishop Jeff Davies and Wangari Matthee, who saw the environmental issues, but also understood that it was critically important for the faith communities to work as one. And so as a religion of unity and as a religion that really, really wants to be collaborative, this was a marvelous opportunity for our somewhat small faith community in South Africa to find a home in SAFSI and work on those very important issues. And especially if we think of South Africa, I mean, I was quite alarmed this morning when I heard our precious professor from Wits just alerting our attention to, you know, what literally on our doorstep in terms of climate change. And so here in South Africa, we cannot ignore this, but we also have the expertise. And one of the great things about SAFSI, which I didn't put in my presentation, but which has just occurred to me after I sent my presentation yesterday, is that it's also, and I've been in AGMs because I've chaired SAFSI meetings a few times. One of the critical things SAFSI also does is that it brings science and religion into a significant space. And so SAFSI is a good place for the Baha'i community to learn for itself and also to learn with the experts, people doing the critical work on all the environmental issues. And I think I speak for everybody when I say just seeing the presentation on climate change this morning, I'm sure, you know, it brings to us again that sense of urgency that perhaps we could be doing more and should be doing more about averting some of these disastrous scenarios which have been referred to. So just in terms of the principle of unity in diversity also, we appreciate the diversity in the group. Sometimes we need the spark of ideas that comes from a diversity of minds and hearts. And then together we have the opportunity to find truth on matters and to move forward on it. So in that sense also, the unity in diversity brings this wonderful wealth, you know, of the minds, and then the joint collaboration on that which is pertinent and critical, and to address the issues that need to be addressed in the time that we live in this era. And then also just quickly in responding to your question, one of the things that really struck me in a piece of work where SAFSI gained a lot of respect and prominence in South Africa is that you do need a voice sometimes to take on the decision makers, to challenge the decision makers, especially when the decisions that are being made, you know, are not in the interest of the poor, are not in the interest of the common good, are politically motivated, etc. When you have a unifying forum, such as in the case of SAFSI, and I'm sure there may be others in the world, you have this one space where everybody can decide together on certain critical issues pertaining to the environment, and that's not good for us. We had a situation in South Africa where clearly the signs were there that we were moving in the direction of nuclear energy. And of course, all the faith communities together, could come and challenge the decision makers and point out why some of this wouldn't be such a good idea. So just on that part of your question, I thought I would just kind of just share those thoughts. I'm not exactly sure how much time you're giving to this part of the question, but I am aware you also have a second part that you would like me to respond to at some point. But for now, I think I'll just point out those motivations for being part of SAFSI.
Thank you very much. And I mean, just to add on what you say, because some people might not be familiar with the South African context. Of course, the initiative on the nuclear energy was successful, wasn't it?
Yes. I mean, in some respects, people refer to it as the David and Goliath legal case, where a tiny organization with few financial resources and, a small board has the courage to act in the interest of the common good, and takes on a well-resourced ministry to point out that we really have a God-given responsibility amongst ourselves to seriously look at what is in the interest of the common good, and not just from a financial perspective. I mean, there are many other perspectives to this, but just from a financial perspective, it would have put the country in so much debt. That's not a route that comes cheaply, so we would be impoverishing the many poor people in our country, even to a greater extent. So yes, I think that was just one example of the united effort of all the faith communities that are part of that forum to say, we have the responsibility. And I can only use quotations from our own text. I mean, in my faith community, it says, the poor in your midst are my trust, God, he my trust. So when we see that decisions are going to be detrimental, especially to the poor, I believe we have the responsibility to act upon it. And if we act in unity, and if we show that the faith communities can be trusted to work together, this trust factor is also very important, because believe it or not, when government gets into trouble at times or are not doing so well on an issue, now especially in the COVID period, they would come out and say, you have the ear of the people on the ground. You are the ones trusted. So if the faith communities have earned the trust of the people, we have the responsibility to work in the interest of the people. And if we can work unitedly, as an interfaith forum, as an interfaith group, and the marvelous way in which SAFSI has created this legitimate forum, I think it's a step in the right direction for our society.
Thank you very much, Tahirih. This is excellent, an excellent testimony of the importance of multi-faith engagement on this topic. And we are so happy to have your perspective in here, along with the previous perspective of the Anglican, Green Anglicans movement, and Apostle Ngobese's perspective from an independent church. And now we are I want to move to another perspective yet, and that is also beyond the South African context. And I would like to invite Robekkah Ritchie to contribute now on her knowledge on Buddhist communities. You've done research on Buddhist communities, Buddhist monks that engaged with ecological issues. So what do you think was the decisive moment or experience for these Buddhist communities to engage with protecting the environment?
You can hear me all right, yeah?
Yes, very well.
Okay. So that's kind of a complicated, there are so many regional examples, and it really depends on what kind of Buddhism you're looking at and where, of course. And the one example that I thought I would give you, because we're a little bit short on time actually, is that of Southeast Asia. So in Southeast Asia, the predominant form of Buddhism is Theravada Buddhism, which is typically thought to be more connected with older forms of Buddhism originating in India, compared to other streams that are found in Tibet and Japan and China, for example. And in Southeast Asia, so starting in India as well, there was a really long tradition of wandering monks. So they spend their years, apart from a few months in the rainy season, they spend their time wandering through the forests and meditating and going from village to village, collecting food. And so forests were a really integral part of their lifestyle and their belief system. And especially in the 60s, but more so 70s, you saw a lot more development in Southeast Asian countries. In Thailand, things were really rapidly developing. You know, there was a lot more industry, and that also required a lot more deforestation within the regions. And so they noticed that, of course, you know, you kind of notice these things sometimes a little bit too late, but there became a tipping point where they were starting to realize how many of the trees and how much of the forest was actually being destroyed in these rural areas in Thailand, for example. And the monks were having fewer places to do their practice and to wander, and their lifestyle was also being disrupted. And you know, we typically think of this in terms of you know, protecting the forest to protect animal species or something like that. But in this case, it was more so the monks that were living in the forest. And there have been a vast array of really fascinating initiatives by forest monks. There's a specific strain of monasticism that is actually called the Thai forest tradition that reemerged in the late 1800s, actually, but got a lot of prominence when the forest started disappearing. So they've also developed some quite novel rituals, for example, that didn't exist in Buddhism before. So they started, for example, ordaining trees, where they take the orange robes of a monk and they do a ceremony and they wrap the robes around the trees and sort of sanctify the trees. And in this way, loggers and people, because there's such a deep societal respect around monasticism and in turn the material culture of that, which extends to monks' robes as well. So when people see monks' robes on a group of trees, suddenly becomes a sacred place. And so they've had some really clever ways of curtailing the deforestation through religious rituals as well. I think that might be my time, actually, but yeah.
Thank you, Robekkah, for this highly interesting example of environmental protection by just putting the monks' robes on the trees. I mean, this is an example that could be copied anywhere, anywhere in the world. I just imagine those black clerical robes that we use in Germany on a tree. Yeah, no, thank you very much for this. This is exciting, and I just want to mention that since we will be running out of time shortly, I just want to redraw your attention to the sticky notes pad. Feel free to just, all the participants do feel free to just put notes there to engage in the discussion. Because I want to give another speaker an opportunity to briefly come in. She has also posted in the chat already, Dr. Ngobese, who was introduced earlier as a water specialist who could not join us in the parallel sessions. Would you like to come in, Dr. Ngobese? Would you like to comment on the discussion?
Yes, definitely. Not giving the presentation though, isn't it?
No. Just engaging on this discussion, seeing that.
That's engaging. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it, and I was so exciting when Rachel was giving the metaphor of the river. And I was just saying, wow, it was definitely connecting to what I was going to present today. Unfortunately, with glitches with the connectivity. Because if we look at it from the years behind us, like the 70s, the 80s, when I tap from the communities when we were growing up, you will see that from time to time, the river is taken as having spiritual connectivity. Whether you like it or not, when you want to meditate, you will go to the river. When you're talking use of water from a spiritual perspective, water is always involved. And that sacredness of water being a provider of life has always been there. Hence, when I saw the role of religious communities, I was so excited, especially in preserving and protecting the freshwater resources ecosystem and their sustainability. And when I'm tapping from the challenges that Apostle Siboniso was presenting, the challenges that are being faced, like the pollution of rivers by communities, the pollution of the general environment due to rapid urbanization, population growth, and the failure for I don't want to say for the current governments, the failure of the current systems to manage that all those dilemmas. It really worries me to say, yes, if we come in as religious communities with all our beliefs and morals, and we instill this in our communities, there will be now fear of saying, not really fear, but respect of saying, you do unto others as you do to me. That principle, that ethical principle, will instill the respect for rivers, will instill the respect for wetlands, will instill the respect for the household connection that is on your yard, because you've got some spiritual connection to it as water, supplying you with your life and others with the life in general. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ngobese, for coming in at this stage. I would like to open the floor for 2 questions before we come to a last round of statements by the presenters, by the panelists. So I will take two questions from the audience. Is there anyone who would like to come in at this stage?
I can go in. I don't want to come in.
Hello, Philip. This is
Yes.
James. Yeah, I want to raise a question on Apostle. There is a challenge, especially in Africa right now. I was reading on the statistics last week. They say that in the year 2050, the population of Africa will be over 2 billion. And we see this is going to be a challenge. I am coming from a Pentecostal background. And from the Pentecostal understanding, we don't talk much about family planning. And it's being opposed. So, and even our governments or the systems are not talking much about population. and we see that the earth is really straining. During this time of COVID-19 in Kenya, 6 months, only
thank you for the question. I think the question is clear. It's about population. I'm trying to just save a little bit on time. If you have more to say, please do feel free to engage with a written comment in the launchpad, because I want to give the speakers an opportunity to respond, and also take a second question if anyone would like to have a second. Thank you very much. Thank you.
How can the religious actors come in and boldly stand to start teaching about family planning in our congregations? Maybe you can address that.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Philip.
Thank you. And is there anyone else who would like to come in at this stage? We have time for a second question. That does. Oh, there is someone.
Hello.
Yes.
Abolaji. Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah. Well, hello, Philip. Good morning. Now, mine is not a question. I just want to make a little comment on about the forestation. In my country here, I heard of samples of Pentecostal pastors, prominent pastors, who decided to pray in thick forests with the mind that that's where God can answer them. So these people, they went with few followers and they asked their followers to stay somewhere and went deeper. So I just want to add this to what we have about forestation, that these can also help. This is a means of the religious groups preserving our forests from, giving us a kind of preservation, because as we have about water, we also have some of them who desire to go deeper. And I know with this, they will not desire that those places are destroyed anyhow. So I'm just adding to it that it's a means of religious body preserving our forest. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Abolaji. I will also take Catherine Ganera's question, and then with that, I will close the list and give the speakers an opportunity to respond to the question.
Hello.
Catherine.
Yes. Good afternoon. Are you hearing me?
Yes, we hear.
I have a question for Rachel, who is with the Green Anglicans. She mentioned that all of us, the young and the old, have contributed to the mess that the world is facing. My question is, what immediate action can be done using the same people, young and the old, to overcome this issue of destroying the world?
Thank you very much, Catherine, for this question. That was also a question that I wanted to additionally add. So what are the points for action? That is quite an important point. And I would also complement it with another question. What do we need from research on the one hand, from development policy on the other hand, and then also from government for religious communities to effectively protect the environment and engage with climate change issues? And let's do a quick round of responses, please. No more than 1 minute per person, and I will be very strict on this. I will interrupt you after 60 seconds. Perhaps we go in the reverse order from earlier, and we start with Robekkah. And feel free to pick the questions that you want to answer. If you don't want to answer questions, just don't worry. So pick whatever you prefer to answer.
Hold on, let me just set a timer. There are many, many different kinds of initiatives specifically targeting environmental impact in Buddhist communities. And you can see that all over the world, actually, and also in a lot of different Buddhist contexts. For example, Bhutan is the tiny Buddhist country that has the only negative carbon footprint in the world, the country with the negative carbon footprint. Or in China, that the vegetarians also have a huge carbon impact with the fact that they don't eat meat. And like the initiative that I mentioned earlier with ordaining trees. And you can also see this as it comes to the West as well, in terms of monasteries being developed in the West that are completely off-grid or are completely based on sustainable methods. So there we go.
Perfect timing. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
And with that, we'll move to a quick last statement, 60 seconds. Tahirih.
Hi, thank you, Philip. So on your question, you alluded to policy. And so I think for my community, you know, the key things about policy is, have the people affected by the issues, have they been consulted? Is it just? You know, where's the justice in the policy? Are we listening to the scientists? Are we taking into account what the scientists are telling us? You know, is there equity? Does it combine the spiritual principles as well as the environmental? So I think these would be some of the, I mean, in a quick answer, these would form very important pillars of policy if we want to move things forward. That's just to get onto your question.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And with that, we are moving to Rachel. 60 seconds. Pick what you want to answer.
One of my sisters asked about involving the youth. So I want to make 3 suggestions. The one is to start with our Sunday schools and madrasas, get the little kids involved because they will fall in love with creation, planting seeds, gardening, taking them on hikes. The second thing is getting your young people and teenagers involved in cleanups, but not just to clean up, but clean up and then replace with something else. The Diocese of Harare has this wonderful thing where they say, reduce, reuse, recycle, rejoice. Claim back that land where you've taken the dirt out of and plant something, plant some trees, plant some crops. And the third thing is to link tree planting. There's too much tree planting. We plant a tree, take a picture with the bishop, and then the tree dies. We need to grow trees. So in order to do that, we need to own the tree. So link your tree planting with something, whether it's your baptism, whether it's your birthday, whether it's your confirmation, whether it's the celebration of a patronal festival. Let us grow trees rather than just planting them. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And then the first and last speaker, Apostle Ngobese.
Philip, come take him also.
Apostle Ngobese. You have 60 seconds to respond to the questions and to make a last statement and comment. Apostle Ngobese.
Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Yes, yes. To the question posed to me about population growth, on our area, I think we lack awareness. Remember, I said it's an area whereby there is a lot of squatter camps. So if we can have awareness whereby pastors or those community developers who are already on the field and ready to work to support the community, to grow the knowledge for the community, if they can get support to teach, because now there are more population in our area, there are more. This happens only especially the children, whereby you find teenage pregnancy is high, support and things like pamphlets to teach, assist. Awareness, that's what I can say, awareness. And to the government or to the researchers, I'll say let them support the organization to sustain. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Apostle. You broke up a little bit there, but we look forward to receiving yours and, of course, all of the speakers' written contributions to the edited volume that I mentioned earlier. So I take this opportunity to once more thank you very much for participating in this panel. Really quite a wonderful experience to be able to moderate this panel with those four panelists, the four of you. Thank you very much for agreeing to be part of it. I would now hand out flowers or a bottle of wine to each of you had we had the opportunity to be here physically, all of us, but just remind me of it the next time we see each other, and then we can still make up for that. So thank you very much to also to all the participants for all the questions, and thanks again to the panelists. And we will now move into the closing session without any break or interruption. We'll just dive into the last part of this webinar, and I will hand over the word to my colleagues of the part ecology workstream, part we care workstream, Lilian Kurz and Dinesh Suna. They will do the challenging task of summarizing the whole day. Well, Lilian, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Philip. Can you hear me all right? Just checking. Okay,
yes,
great.
very much so.
All right, thanks, Philip. Yes, my name is Liliane Kurz from the World Evangelical Alliance. I am one of the co-leads of the work stream who co-hosted this event, and I would also like to greet everyone to the season of creation, which starts today with the World Day for Prayer, of Prayer for Creation that Rachel Mash already told us. And yeah, first of all, it's impossible to summarize the great content that was shared with us in the past 4 hours. I'm really impressed and very happy and very thankful to Philip and his team who put together this great program. So thank you very much, Philip, and your team, and also the colleagues from the part secretariat who did all the technical management in the background. Looking back at the past 4 hours, I personally especially enjoyed the combination of science and religion, of scientific and religious perspectives, because I think both of them so much influence all of our lives, and it was a real joy just to see the combination and also the conversation between the two. And I would like to thank especially François Engelbrecht for sharing with us very important scientific data once more. I think many of us have heard these data before, but when you are confronted with them, it really is once again a wake-up call for all of our religious communities, I think, because we have such a vast outreach in most areas of the world. And we have to take emergency action across our denominations in ecumenical and interreligious movements. Someone posted on the canvas that we need a mass movement of regular eco-prayers for climate justice by all churches, and I'm adding all other religious organizations as well. Saving Southern Africa from the threat of a hothouse scenario could be part of this motto. And I think we should combine this prayer movement with a large-scale advocacy movement vis-à-vis our governments, especially those that François Engelbrecht also mentioned, that very negatively contribute to greenhouse gas emissions. And we have learned once again that immediate action is needed. Otherwise, we will reach the temperature increase of 1.5 by the year of 2030, and 2030 is a hallmark for all of us who work on the Sustainable Development Goals. So we are really at a crossroads here, and it's important to take action, because, like François said, every meter of sea level rise displaces 100 million people, and those are the people that belong to our religious communities. So it's really on us to mobilize. And it is so important to engage congregations. And here I would like to thank Mangalisu for his very insightful presentation on the Pentecostal eco-theology, which I found very interesting. And I think most of us know that the Pentecostal and also other evangelical independent churches are growing very fast across the globe. So it's very important to develop a liturgy and to develop an eco-theology from a Pentecostal perspective. This brings me to the 3 working groups that I will certainly not summarize all of them now, but I joined the group by Dr. Lorene Marcino from. One of the action points that we defined there was to work on an overview of the different theological traditions on ecology. This could also be a basis for better ecumenical or interreligious dialogue on creation. And we also said that it's very important that eco-theology that is developed speaks to young people. This is in line with what Rachel also said. The third group discussed local multi-faith action. And they said that it's really important to strike global partnerships, or to bring the global partnerships that already exist to the local level, because on the global level there's so much cooperation already going on, and this has to be translated to the local level as well. And last but not least, the group 5 discussed sustainable agriculture. And they said that in order to counter soil degeneration, intergenerational knowledge sharing, education, and ecological renewal strategies are important. So with this very short summary, I would like to close my remarks and once again thank all the speakers very much for their contributions. And once again, thank Philip and his team at the Humboldt University for the planning, and also my fellow co-leads and the PART Secretariat for implementing this capacity building. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Philip, can I come in now? Thank you. Thank you, Lilian. Friends, my name is Dinesh Suna. I work for the World Council of Churches as a coordinator for Ecumenical Water Network. Many of you I relate to through my work. As one of the co-leads responsible for taking notes and summarizing with Lilian. Thank you for other colleagues who helped taking notes because we too can't be in all 6 working groups at the same time. So Laura from GIZ from PAD, she sent me the summary from the group 2 on ecofeminism, and many of you were there, so you may identify. This session helped looking at ecofeminism in different contexts, also in deconstructing the intersection between religion and culture. And it also looked at the relationship between ecological challenges and the impoverishment of women. Clarifying the importance of role of men and boys in the ecofeminism was important. They also had an analysis of intersecting points which prevents social justice from being realized. They also looked at the reproductive rights for women within the ecofeminism as well, and more emphasis on the interventions, then the nurturing dimensions with regards to female contributions to ecological sustainability. In the interest of time, I'm not going into much detail because we will get a detailed report and later on. The working group on water, group number 4, couldn't take place because Dr. Esper Nkube, as we understood, couldn't join. But later she gave a very beautiful remark in addition to Rachel Marsh's comment on rivers. And she said rivers as a metaphor was very meaningful, and the rivers being sacred and the pollution of the rivers due to rapid urbanization or the population growth, etc. It is a growing concern, and how religious communities, if they come forward in protection of the rivers and the ecology, the government also would think twice before allowing this sort of pollution and mismanagement. A detailed discussion was held on group 6 on water from an Islamic point of view. This was led by Dr. Muhammad Galant. And it was interesting to also see, as me being not a Muslim, as a Christian, could also see equal importance was given to water and the protection of it in Quran, Holy Quran. And water is a high value in Islam. Wastage of water is not allowed, and it is depicted in many verses from the Quran. And the Prophet's saying about awareness around water among communities was also underlined, and that also is true in South Africa. What was interesting also was to see that privatization of water is also prohibited, in the sense that selling of water for profit is not allowed in Quran. That's something very interesting for me as someone working on water. Also, we discussed in the group I was there about the fatwa that was issued by different muftis of, let's say, for example, of Oman and maybe other parts of the world, how water fatwas can protect and save water, and also the ablution that is needed to pray in the mosques. A lot of water is also used, and one of the fatwas in Oman was to probably use recycled water if the region is facing a drought or doesn't have enough water. This was a great way of saving water, and also reusing the water that is collected after the ablution processes. I also took the liberty with Lillian's consultation to summarize the other three panels that just spoke. Is it okay, Philip, that I say a few words? Good. Making your job much easier. Tanya mentioned about the Green TLC. That was quite interesting initiative that they launched officially today. Congratulations, Tanya and SAFSI team and others. The Green TLC, it's a producer.
Hello, please, I would like to make a contribution. This is Imam Shefi. Yes. After.
Sorry. Okay, afterwards. Thank you. So the Green TLC produces materials for churches and communities with an overview of different theological traditions, emphases, and perspectives. These are learning materials produced. They're at the moment working on a resource manual on ecological engagements, which would emphasize on ecological challenges faced by church leaders, some success stories, liturgies, Bible studies, etc. A lot of it will be online, but there is a solution for them, those who do not have access to internet as well. Tanya could give us more information as they come up with a website. The panel discussion, of course, talked about Apostle Siboniso from the Global Biblical Church. He was concerned about the surrounding where the church works, how this is hygienic issues were highlighted, how water is contaminated because of illegal hazardous dumping, and also the issue of squatters was also highlighted. And as a response to the population growth, how some of those squatter community also have issues like teenage pregnancy, etc. And therefore churches have got more to do in creating awareness. Reverend Rachel Maas, obviously the Green Anglicans, gave some insights on reinterpreting biblical passages and narratives and the meaning of salvation according to Bible to make it more holistic and make it more eco-sensitive. And she emphasized on, instead of building institutions, etc., churches should focus on movement building and individuals versus networks, where networks are appreciated. And she also said how we can sacrifice our own identity for a greater common good, so that how many networks are now, for example, season of creation, so many organizations are involved, but we know it as season of creation. And instead of just tree planting, let us grow tree or nurture them. Don't just forget after a photo op. The Baha'i community representative, Tahirih, she gave how and why they joined SAFSI in order to get a wider identity, as well as more impactful when it comes to raising issues with the government. Then Dr. Rebecca Ritchie gave a very interesting Buddhist tradition, how some of the wandering monks who lived and walked through forests helped protecting the forests by tying some robes or holy threads around the trees so that they not be felled by loggers. This was very interesting. I think these were some of the things that I captured, but obviously more details can be sent by Philip and his team. Thank you very much, and also congratulations to all of us on the season of creation. Wonderful initiative on a very important day. Thank you.
Thank you, Dinesh. Thank you, Lillian, for an excellent summary of the whole day. Quite a challenging task, but I couldn't have. I'm so glad you did this nearly as good anything that I could have said now. So thank you very much for this. Thank you to the other co-leads of the We Care work stream. The remaining 2 minutes that I'm still going to use are basically saying thank you to various people. I already thanked the co-leads of the We Care work stream. Now, once more, thank you very much to all the speakers of today, all the panelists, keynote speakers, group facilitators. Thank you very much. And then also to all participants for sharing their thoughts on the canvas, on the pinboard, and for asking questions, for posting in the chat. Thank you very much for participating, for being with us today, and we look very much forward to further engagement with you. Importantly, we also want to thank those that have made this possible, and that is the PART Secretariat, who haven't appeared much in a speaker's role, but I still want to mention everybody's name, because without the support of the Secretariat, nothing of this would have been possible. Let me just, I hope I'm not forgetting anyone. I have a list, but I hope it's complete. Laura Schmitz, and then we have Brenda Lubanga, Jonas Lucas, Paulina Hinz, Maria Noting, Claudia Zeisel. And is there anyone I'm forgetting of those involved? If so, please speak up now. Okay, it doesn't seem to be the case. And also, of course, Thomas Lavaux for putting, for being there in the background and facilitating this whole initiative. And then I also want to thank those people from Humboldt University that were part of this event and that made it possible, that organized it. The first person I need to mention is Juliane Stork, who is not with us today because she's on summer vacation now. By the time we planned this webinar, it was clear that she would be on vacation on this date. So we said, okay, she'll organize it and I will then moderate it. So I'm taking all the fame or all the applause in the end, but I will only take it on behalf of Juliane. So much of it is Juliane's works. And then, of course, Nora Monza, who has done much of the organization of everything that we are doing this week with PART, but also this webinar. And to just mention the other names of everybody involved is Inda Harahap and Anna Herrmann, Daniel Schumacher, Eckhard Sonntag, and am I forgetting anyone? Pumutsu Mufamadi, of course, yes. We are so happy that everybody contributed to this. Thank you for all your support, both to PART Secretariat and Humboldt University. And thanks again for the PART We Care work stream for excellent collaboration on this event. I think it really was a very fruitful partnership that we had in this. And now the very last thing, I guess, is, or two very last things. The first one is, you're still welcome to write your comments in the canvas. I'll repost the canvas. So if there's anything you still want to share in terms of content, if you want to engage, if you feel like you have a contribution to make to the edited collection that will come out of it, if you want your comment to be included in the report, please let us know. Just post the canvas, send us an email, post a note in the canvas, send us an email, whatever you feel is the right format, but just let us know. We'll post the link just now. And we kindly ask you to evaluate this webinar. My colleague Nora will post a link in the chat, and it will take just 5 questions, 1 page with 5 questions. You can just click on it once you are moving out of this virtual room. If there's nothing else to mention, then I would like to thank everybody again and wish you a good season of creation and a good afternoon.
Thank you, Philip. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Very good.
Bye, Philip.
Everybody, thank you, Philip.
Thank you.
Dear
Thank you.
friends. Bye.
Make the season of creation count this time.
Bye-bye.
Bye.